So we're going to carry on with part 2 of the jade planting and forest, or however it turns out. That still remains to be seen. But I just wanted to show you in here how everything is absolutely growing superbly, green upon green upon green everywhere. The horse chestnut leaves, these are amazing. Look at how these have come out. The size of these. I mean, obviously we don't want all that bit. Our bonsai's down there, but you can see tiny little leaves down there, which will hopefully do us some good stuff in the future, and all this will be coming off. But it just looks absolutely brilliant, you know, it's fantastic. And then everything around it, all the new growth on the ivy, the pyracantha, the zelkova up there that we thought wasn't going to do anything, that's going absolutely crackers too. The cherries, the rowans, the other horse chestnuts at the back that I did try to give away but ended up reclaiming them because nobody wanted them. The catalpas have started putting out. Everything's just going absolutely crackers. Yeah, everything's just really good. One of the pines from seeds there, sticking out a long candle. Look at the length of that, amazing. And then lots of other things just continuing to do what they do. Kay's rowan there, first bonsai that she did. We might stick that in a pot within the next few videos. We've got a pine in there that we brought back. I think that one came back from Belgium. That's doing all right, and just everything is just really growing really strongly, apart from a couple of the casualties over the winter, but nothing to worry about too much. Pine from seed there that is trying to grow. One there that died over the winter. I brought them in here just to try and help recover them, but obviously that was a bad move. The red buds there and over there, that's the sick corner that we hope that things recover, and some have and some haven't. The Japanese larch is growing really well. We need to get the wire off of that. We'll probably do that after we've done the jade, because that's starting to bite in and we're going to end up with some horrible scars. But other than that, you know, all these things are growing nicely and doing well. A lot of this stuff was from seed. That was a pine forest that we put together with the ones from seed, and everything's just doing really nice. All the jade cuttings there going through their recovery bit. The ficus religiosas coming back after a worrying session of thinking that they hadn't made it through the winter, but they're very resilient, and you can see all the new growth coming through on a lot of these. Hoping to do a bit of a penjing with these. I do have some materials coming, but we'll see whether we can lay our hands on some decent houses or whatever. But let's get back to the jade, because this has waited far too long. We'll strip it out of this pot. We will make some final pruning choices, and we are going to put it into this pot, and depending on how sparse it looks, we may incorporate some of the other jades just trimmed back also, which will again give us more cuttings. And we do have some larger jades up in the grow tents upstairs. So let's crack on, get this out of its pot and get this one ready to house it. Right, so we're up and running. Got the most important thing, a nice cup of tea. So keep myself hydrated with a nice brew. And I think the first thing that I'm going to do is start taking off this moss, just in case we decide to use it on another planting. Now I've got this bowl here, which I've put a bit of water in the bottom, and we'll just start picking off the moss. It's coming off quite easily, and it can sit in this bowl and soak up some of this water and continue to hopefully green up. I do actually have a couple of these bowls, so once I've filled this one up I can get the next one. That's good, it's soaked up the water, so that's really good. We'll give it a good spray and we'll let it sit and hopefully green up and be able to be used. So I've got another pot here and I'll just turn our planting round so we can get to the moss that's at the back. It hasn't been the best moss, to be fair. You know, it's gone green in some places and done okay, but it didn't green up nicely like I thought it would. We've used rainwater for it, so we haven't put any chemicals from the tap into it, but yeah, it's not been really fantastic moss. We do have a little project that we're going to do. We're going to use the vert planter in one of the next upcoming videos. We're going to try and grow some moss on the vert planter. We've got the moss spores that our good friend Tom from Grow and Clip Bonsai sent, and we'll see whether we can get the moss spores growing nicely. Alright, we'll let that sit. The moss is soaking up the water, so I'll just share it with the one that we did first, because that's really soaked up the water, and that will allow it to hopefully green up a lot more. It does like the moisture, the moss. And we'll just pull this clump out of this pot. There we go. And this is just a plastic training pot with the preformed holes in, and it's done a pretty decent job. Well, that's interesting. We've got a little slug right in the bottom of there, so we'll have to make sure this soil's cleaned out and fully replaced. So we'll just rake some of this old soil away, which is quite solid. I don't think this stems back to the bad substrate that we had, the clay particles that broke down to nothing. I don't think it's that material, but it could well be, unfortunately. We'll just break this down and see what's inside. It does feel very, very stiff, very compact. So we'll just pull this out in a nice radial fashion, as always. Obviously it will tear some of the roots, but it will keep the nice radial roots intact, hopefully. Some of the crossing roots we can hear will tear. But where we built it up, it has put out a lot of roots. There's very shallow root base on a Jade, but we did raise it up in that training pot, so we allowed it to put quite a few downward roots out. But as we know with the Jade, they grow really well, they put roots out really well. So, you know, as long as we leave it with something to work with, this planting should carry on to do nicely. I do remember somebody commenting on this planting when it was put together, saying something about this soil is no good for a jade, but bonsai soil is okay for a jade because you want the free draining soil. You don't want it to hold too much water because they are renowned for rotting, or you know, any succulent, if it sits in a wet condition for too long, the roots can and will rot. Now, I don't know what it is with me, but I've never knowingly experienced that. I know that I water my jades a lot more than a lot of other people do, having watched lots of jade videos and listened to what people say, paying attention to different aspects of what people have to say. And there's this obvious fear of overwatering your jade tree, and it's valid. It really is valid. I'm not going to say it's not, but luckily for me, I feel that I have in the past overwatered my jades, watered them too much, and even at one stage had them in pots that didn't actually drain the water away. So really I should have suffered a lot of upset, if you like, because the trees probably should have rotted and had many problems that I've been lucky enough to not experience. Water jades, sit them in, well, succulents and jades, have them sat in water for too long, the roots can and will rot. So just bear that in mind. You're listening to me saying what I'm saying here, but I've obviously been extremely lucky in the past. I don't know why they didn't rot for me, what I have or haven't done right, or not right, as may be the case. But yeah, I've not suffered any rot. I have had jades and succulents that have died, but they've literally just shriveled up and died back, which I would put more towards not watering than over watering. But as you can see, for the size of the tree that this was, this root system is really, really small. You know, there's hardly anything there, and if we look underneath, we've got plenty of soil in there, but I think I can feel a hard bottom of this, so it comes all the way down to here. So I think we might be able to lift, you know, the tree up a little bit and expose more of this top nabari, hopefully. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to get most of this soil out, as we are doing, and I think I'm going to take it and give it a good rinse off, and then we'll come back and see where we're at, see what roots we've got, and start thinking about getting it into our new tray and making some decisions about how we go forward, because we've got some interesting branch structure, diplomatic way of saying it. We've got branches popping out all over, so let's get cleaned up, get this thrown away, because we don't know what's inside this soil, and we'll come back. See you in a sec. So here's the jade clump back. We've washed it out as far as we can. We've obviously damaged some of the roots, but jades being jades, you know, they will recover, and there's lots of roots at this top level that I think if we can lift it as much as possible out of the soil level, we can you know, flatten it off and make a nice root plane. Now there is this big lump on the bottom about here for the bottom of this trunk, and I'm just contemplating whether or not to remove this bottom lump about an inch or so, just to balance it off a little bit and make it not stand so high out of the pot, because the pot we've got is very shallow. It would mean we'd have to build it up quite a lot. This has been cut down once before, so I'm pretty sure we can get away with cutting it down again. So I'm just going to come in with a pull saw and I'm going to take it to here. So I'm just going to slice through this hard base, and there we are. I might keep that, it'll probably just dry up and go fleshy, but I might try and keep that for a little bit of something to one side. I just wash that off, and then what we'll do is we'll dry that off for when we plant it, so that it sits on top of the soil. We'll not water it straight away obviously, but that will give us a nice level to plant on. Once we've got the soil level in, that will give us a nice standing level to plant it on, and then we can build up inside the pot. I mean, looking at the pot now, maybe it should have been an inch deeper, maybe, but we'll work with it. Let's get this cleared off again, and then we'll come back with the pot. We'll put a layer in the pot and see where we land. So here we are with the pot. As you can see, it's a very thin pot. We'll get a layer in, a layer of soil in, and we'll see where that leaves us. We'll just cover the drainage screen first, and then we'll get a layer of soil all the way around. This is a mixture of perlite, I believe there's some macadamia in here, it's just about everything in here now. There is some organic matter, there's everything. There's the eggshells, there's reptile bark, the repti bark stuff. Yeah, we've got literally everything in here. Volcanic rock, the stuff that I got from the Doncaster car boot from Harry Harrington's stall, Bonsai for me. Let's just see if we can position the jade in, and we can try it central first, in a central position, and that's not too bad. I think we need to lose some of these long roots here and just take them back. I was originally contemplating bringing in another big tree to one side, or pushing this one across that way and having a big tree off this side and losing this clump here. And you probably could accommodate that in the planting, but do you know what? I think I'd really like this jade to stay as it is and just allow it to carry on its own. And I think what we'll do is we'll get it all the soil put in, I'm quite happy with that position of the tree in the pot. I will just bring you out to have a look. So that's how I can see it in the pot, and you can see there's plenty of room to build up around the outside. I think if we tried to put too much more in, it could facilitate more jade, or maybe some smaller jades to make a forest, but I'm struggling with putting more into it than it wants. There's obviously lots of bits growing on the insides and things like that we need to go at in future, but I'm kind of leaning towards less is more for where we're at. We've stressed this tree quite a lot. We've cut the bottom off to give it a lower planting angle, because as you can see from this angle, its nabari height is quite above the rim of the pot, so we are going to have to build it up like we did last time. I think I'm quite happy with how it sits. There's lots of crossing roots and things here and here and here, and normally we'd be looking to tidy that up straight away. But I'm just kind of mindful of how much the roots have been stressed, and these roots have been, they've been in these positions for a long time, and whilst we'd like the radial root flare and that nice flowing movement, I think I'm similarly quite happily to go with these crossing over roots, although it's not quite right. The jade isn't really a bonsai in the first place, so we've already broken the rules using a jade. I'll just sit it further back in the pot just to check that out. Now I don't really like that, so we'll bring it back to where it was, and we'll start filling in the soil. I've every confidence that this jade will carry on doing well. I have no fears of it, dying or anything like that. It's very old, so obviously the last thing we want is for anything to happen to this jade. But they're very resilient, as we know and as we've said. And as long as we look after it, it should do just fine. So before we put too much soil in, I'm just working that into these empty pockets that are around the underneath of the tree now, and we'll just work in all the way around, and then just keep filling up with soil afterwards, and work it in, fill it up, work it in. And there's lots of little air pockets underneath there, so we'll just take our time and get it worked in. I will be watching this video back later on, and if I think that some of this is a little bit too boring for you all, I'll fast forward a few bits and skip it or whatever. But you can always skip forward yourselves, that magic double click to get that 10 seconds ahead, or even slide forward through the timer. I don't mind. I wouldn't want to listen to me waffling on either. But we do have carry on with our pink scoop, putting the soil in. I did look at a set of silver scoops at the Crawley show, and I was half tempted to get them, and maybe I will in the future, but I don't mind my little pink scoop. It came in a bit of a kit with something at some stage, and I quite like my pink scoops. What have we got coming here? What's this?
Tea.
A cup of tea. Get this. My darling wife brings me a nice cup of tea. I think the tea bag must be in there. Yep. How pretty is that? A little brass spoon. Oh dear, she shouldn't have let me see that, should she? Is that going to make it back to the house? I don't know. And then, how cute is that? That's really cool. Bringing me a cup of tea, keeping me out of the house probably. He's waffling away. I think as well, we've got vents above head which go straight into the kitchen, and I bet they can hear me waffling away. And whilst you guys might not mind, and it's an interesting subject to some people that are watching, for some people around me, they're probably sick to the back teeth of hearing about bonsai and one thing and another. It's quite funny, to be fair. But no, do you know what? I think I'm quite happy to stay with just this tree in this pot. I wanted this pot to show off this jade, and this jade in particular. So if I was to start adding the other jades in, it would lose its meaning, if that makes sense. You know, this tree means a lot. It comes down through the family, probably about 60 years old or more. I think it breaks some people's hearts that I do what I do with it, but you know, it is what it is, and nobody else wanted it. You know, you'd say, oh, do you want it? Do you want it? No. Oh God, no. And of course, as you know, I have a soft spot for succulents and jades and things like that, and a few other things. And I'm more than happy to do this. This tree, been in the family, Kay's side of the family, for 50 to 60 years possibly. It originally came from her grandmother's side, and I think it was taken out of the house and nobody really wanted it, but again, soft spot for jades here. I had it, and I've took numerous cuttings. These cuttings have gone all over the world, rightly or wrongly. And I'd like to think that there's a lot of people that have had some jades off me, and this tree lives and grows, you know, all over the world. Nigel Saunders has got a cutting off this. You'll see it from time to time on his channel. He calls it the Winard Jade, obviously. And there's a couple of people that I will make have one at some stage, although they don't really have much of an interest of jades. I believe I sent jades to Jared from Jarhead Bonsai. I should have sent one to Tom from Grow and Clip Bonsai for Seniors. If not, I will have to try and rectify that. I am going over to the US National Show later in the year, and you know, hopefully we can do a bit of rectification on that, and if I haven't sent Tom one, I will certainly either send him one but you have to take so many precautions nowadays. The good thing with a jade is not needing to be watered as much as some trees. When they put them in quarantine, you know, the jade will sit there quite happily, not getting watered. You send some of your prize trees around the world, like when we want to take the trees to Europe nowadays, you know, you have to send them in such a way where the tree's not going to be available to be looked after, certainly not by yourself, for a period of time, which could lead to something happening to the tree. It could suffer, you could lose parts, or, you know, it's limitless as to the situation that we find ourselves with Brexit. The fact that we can't just mosey on into Europe. You used to be able to take, I think, 5 trees quite happily. They would, as long as they wasn't on the banned list, because obviously some species of trees you do not take anywhere under any circumstances. And we're doing a lot of anders. So we'll just keep working the soil in and building it up. We'll probably need to turn around and get to the back side of the tree and planting very soon. I do like my little cat cup. We do like cats, and that's a cool little thing. And the little top on, I think it's actually a sugar pot, but what a fantastic idea she's had. You know, make it in that, turned it into a bit of a thermos by keeping the heat from escaping. Brilliant. And I thought I was the engineer of the family. So the pot on this is obviously the priciest part. Jades aren't worth a great deal. This jade, when it was full size before I decimated it a couple of weeks ago, was probably worth anywhere between 60 and 100 pounds. And between me and you know, don't tell the wife, the pot was a little bit more. We got the bargain of the day at the end of the day. I think this pot was sat for 250 euros, and we went up to the stall and tried to work our magic with come on last sale of the day sort of comment, and I was expecting maybe 200 to be mentioned, best part maybe just underneath with a 190 or something like that. And when it came in at 150, like I said in one of the previous videos, I couldn't get my money out of my pocket fast enough to buy it. It's a really nice pot. It's a bit of a garish yellow, you know it's there, but it's certainly setting off the trunk, and it will set off the leaves as they grow. I think some of this lower growth we're obviously going to take out, and then we'll try and build a bit of a canopy across the top, which means that we will end up taking some of these higher ones away to create that sort of dome shape that you hear so many people talking about. I've spent a lot of time working these roots, working the substrate into the roots, the bonsai soil. But I think you do a little bit more when the tree means that little bit more to you. I don't think you waste too much time on trees that you don't really think too much about. You sort of say, oh, that'll do, you know, that'll do, that'll be fine. But no, it won't be fine. Right, we'll turn the tree around. Oh, as we can see, we've got lots of exposed roots at the at the back here, and lots of gaps to work into, so that's good. Again, I'm not too worried about the crossing roots. If we get the top in a really nice condition and it's worth sorting the roots out, we can definitely do that going forward. But I'm quite happy to keep the roots as they are. There's lots of fine roots on the inside in here where there was a build-up of muck and soil. They'll either shrivel up and die, or they'll become like an air root like that one. So there's some air roots that have come down there that will continue going down and into the pot, and that'll be quite an interesting feature as if it continues to do that. But we have, you know, we've lowered the soil level considerably, which will expose a lot of this. A lot of the fine ones that are not much cop should die away, and then the more established ones and the ones that do well will continue to grow, but they'll continue to give us some really nice added features to this tree. There's lots and lots of air gaps in there, so that's why it's taking so long to fill them all in. But I do have a feeling that the substrate that was in last time was a bit of the not so nice soil. So as this grows and the roots grow through this soil, it will not break down as much. You know, there's the lava rock, I said volcanic rock earlier, probably the same sort of thing, but different terminology. And I was searching for lava rock in my brain, and all I could think was volcano. So but there's lots of nice aerial roots on the back of here, which if they continue to grow out of the soil, they'll put some nice features in. But as I was saying, the roots growing through this soil, you know, they'll have to cut and bend their way around the soil because it won't break down as horribly as that those clay particles that I had previously. And we should get a lot better root structure to work with on the next repot, which strangely I'm already looking forward to. Bit sadistic, isn't it, really? Yeah, it's really going in really well, all this soil. It just takes time. And like I say, when it's a tree that you like and love, you don't mind doing it. I think you've probably seen enough soil going into the roots. So what I'll do is I'll carry on until I'm happy, and then we'll come back for the next stage. Well, that's all the soil worked in. We've exposed a few aerial roots. We just hope that they continue to grow down and do well in the air. I'm not going to water it because of that cut that we did at the bottom. It had a good water previously, so I'm basically happy for it just to survive on what it's taken up. We'll allow it to sit for maybe 2 days, and we'll water it in a couple of days, give it a real thorough watering, and then the moss that we took off we'll place around the tree, and then we'll probably do a part 3 where we take a final look at the structure that's on here, and then I think any forest idea going forward, you know, adding a tree in, taking this bit out, whatever way we go, will be the next Jade repotting series session that we do. So hopefully you weren't too bored by a lot of the putting in the soil of the roots, and you know, it was a worthwhile event. I'll bring you back for part 3 in 2 or 3 days when we remoss the planting and give it a thorough watering. But until then, get out there and make the best of the rest of your day. Be kind to each other, animals and the planet, and as always, I will see you again in the next one.